The latest update here from Hurricane Irma. Now, we do have a hurricane watch in effect for South Florida that's just came down from the National Hurricane Center. This watch goes into effect until Sunday evening, likely to see those hurricane warnings pop up soon. But we also have a storm surge watch in effect for South Florida as well. Now, Hurricane Irma still days. So let's go ahead, get to it. Hurricane Irma right now was seeing those sustained wind speeds once again, 175 miles per hour. That pressure staying pretty stable, 921 millibars. When you see that pressure drop, that usually means there's some strengthening. So we haven't seen that, but still, this is a very strong, dangerous storm just to the north now of the Dominican Republic. And it's going to continue that west-northwest progression here at about 16 miles per hour. So the next stop we'll see will be Turks and Caicos getting impacted by Hurricane Irma, as well as portions of the Bahamas, northern and central portions of the Bahamas. So let's come on over to the Weather Center and we'll talk a little bit more about some of these impacts that we could be seeing. We'll take you right over to the monitor here, especially with the latest track that we have. Now, this is the cone of uncertainty, and this is a big-time player with us, especially when we get further out. 4 to 5 days out, the average difference here with that cone. Take it for what it is right now. This is where the models are trending and where the National Hurricane Center thinks the center of Hurricane Irma will lie. And you can see here by Friday, still a Category 5 storm with wind speeds at 160 miles per hour. As we continue here through Saturday, it'll drop to a Category 4. Still, we could see a catastrophic damage with this storm at a Category 4 status, and that's likely what we'll be seeing making landfall in South Florida as we get into the day on Sunday, as early as Sunday morning here, with sustained wind speeds of 145 miles per hour. This is why we have that hurricane watch in place, making sure people are getting out, evacuating, which is what we're seeing. And that storm surge, very dangerous, the most dangerous part of a storm. Storm surge could be, especially in the Bahamas, the Caribbean, where we're seeing right now 15 to 20 feet. Right now, we're seeing potential for storm surge 5 to 10 feet for the east coast of Florida. So it's something that we'll be keeping our eye on here over the coming days. Now you can see that cone widens when you get to day 4, day 5. As we head into Monday, it will be entering the South Florida at about a Category 4 status, and this is what the likely track of it. But again, there is some wiggle room in the coming days of this storm. Now, models are still trending more towards the east coast of Florida, but we could see those changes. This will continue up the coast of Florida and then make a secondary landfall near the Georgia and South Carolina border. From that point, it'll be a Category 3 storm and will continue its trek into the Carolinas and could be impacting us here in the Charlotte area as early as Monday evening into Tuesday morning. And you can see dropping down to a tropical storm status with sustained wind speeds about 60 miles per hour. Very dangerous still. I don't really need to tell you, we could talk about Sandy, which wasn't even categorized at that point, but the damage that it did, you don't need to have that to still see the damage. So you still want to make sure that you are taking precautions. We could see some very heavy rainfall, some dangerous winds. That much rain with just even a little bit of wind could bring down trees. So it's something to be very careful of in the coming days. Now here's a list of those potential tracks from Hurricane Irma that I was talking about. These are our spaghetti models, just showing where that model guidance is, and you can see still not exactly lining up. So again, that's where that wiggle room comes into play, especially as we enter the later parts of the weekend. So the closer we get, the more pinned down this track will be. Now, a big factor here is our tropical storm force winds and the potential where we could begin to see this. For South Florida, we'll begin to see that as early as Friday evening, and that means that we'll see wind speeds over 35 miles per hour, some of those gusts. As we head into the Carolinas, we'll begin to see some of those gusts by Sunday evening, especially into South Carolina, into the Georgia coasts. And here in the Charlotte area, we can begin seeing some of those gusts or feeling some of those gusts as early as Monday and especially into the day on Tuesday. So it's going to be getting pretty windy there for Monday and Tuesday, and that's when we'll be dealing with some of that heavy rain as well. This isn't the only storm that we're seeing in the Atlantic. We have 3 hurricanes right now in the Atlantic. We have Katia, which is not going to have any sort of impact to us. This is in the Gulf of Mexico. We'll be likely making landfall in Mexico and really dying out pretty quickly. But we also have Jose, which will be following up on Irma's coattails here within the coming days. So another week, Jose might be something that we'll be talking about. So it's something that we will continue to keep our eye on. Let's go ahead and we'll talk about some of the impacts for us rain-wise, talking about that very heavy rainfall. Through Tuesday evening, we could see 3 inches of rain for many portions of the Piedmont. And for other areas, I wouldn't be surprised if we saw maybe 5 to 7 inches for isolated areas. So it's something to keep in mind that we could see some flooding, especially those low-lying areas, those areas that you see flooding normally if you see any sort of a heavy rain event. So keep that in mind. Again, we can pin this down later the closer we get to the event. And it's definitely not something for you to panic, but it is a good time for you to prepare and have your supplies ready. Make sure that you have batteries. Power going out, not out of the question, especially with trees that could come down. So make sure that you do have batteries, you have water, and you are just supplied in case the power does go out. Obviously, we're not going to be seeing as great of impacts as they'll be seeing in South Florida or for the coastal areas, but again, it still could be a very, very dangerous storm in the coming days. So this is why we're here, keeping you up to date on exactly what you need to know. So if anyone has any questions, I can answer them out to you. So go ahead, we can.
Do you think this is going to be more of a rain event or wind event for the Charlotte area?
For us, I think that it'll be more of a rain event. We can go over some of those, the biggest factors. I think first up will be the potential for some very heavy rain. Second will be some damaging wind gusts. And third, and definitely should not be left out, could be the potential for some isolated tornadoes. Now, the most dangerous part, I'll go back here. The most dangerous part of a storm is going to be, if you imagine breaking it down into quadrants, will be that top right quadrant. So when we see the system move in here late or in the day on Tuesday, usually to the right side of the eye, that's where you can see, or that center portion, that's where you can see some of those spin-ups. Usually they're about 100 miles from the center, but you could see these tropical spin-ups within this storm here at any time. So it's something that we'll be keeping an eye on. Usually they're quick. I know it doesn't matter. It's a tornado. It's still scary, but they are usually quick, and they're usually short-lived, and they're usually on the weaker side.
All right. Will Chesterfield County see any type of hurricane force winds?
Yes, Chesterfield County. Yep, you'll be getting in on that as well.
And flooding in Matthews, is that going to be an issue?
It could be. It's definitely something that we'll be keeping an eye on. It'll be flash flooding. It'll be quick. The good news about Hurricane Irma, it's going to be moving through really fast. We're going to be seeing, beginning to see some rain bands move in late Sunday into Monday and Tuesday, but by Wednesday, we'll be clearing out.
And why do you call it heavy rain? Oh, no, that is not. Yes, that's a good joke, Victory Cat. Thank you. Let's see here. What about Greenville, South Carolina?
Greenville, same ramifications that we could see here across the Charlotte area will be the potential for some heavy rain as well, and then same potential for some damaging wind.
And what impact do you expect for the people near the coast of North Carolina?
Coast of North Carolina right now, with the track that we're seeing, again, you can see that cone of uncertainty. It does include a portion of the North Carolina coast. For the most part, though, it looks like you'll be missing out on the big event here with Irma, but you will see a rise in those tides, some of those swells. You could be getting a good beat down with the waves there along the coast. But for the wind event, a little bit windy, but not as bad as what we'll be seeing to the south.
All right, and Lancaster, South Carolina, more wind or rain?
I would say more rain for you as well. Yep, really within any part of the Piedmont.
All right, and is it going to look like a possible Category 1 for the Charlotte area, or more of a tropical storm?
I really don't think you should be getting wrapped up in the categories when it makes its way into Charlotte. Really just think about the impacts that we could be seeing, but it could hold on to a Category 1, likely to be downgraded to a tropical storm. Once it makes landfall and it gets into that rougher terrain, these storms get ripped apart pretty easily.
All right, and what time of impact are we expecting in the Charlotte area, daytime or nighttime?
Sunday night is when we'll begin seeing some of those outer rain bands move in.
Gastonia, North Carolina, what are they expecting?
Same as everyone else, potential for some wind and rain.
And will the conditions be safe enough for children to attend school?
That would be a question that's up to administrators, emergency managers. So that's something they'll be getting together with the local National Weather Service office to go ahead and discuss those and what they seem fit. So not a call by me.
All right. And Myrtle Beach, what kind of impacts are they expecting?
Myrtle Beach could definitely get in on some of those stronger winds. They'll probably see those tropical storm force winds, I would say by Sunday into Monday. So depending on that, you're a little bit closer to where we could be seeing landfall. So for Myrtle Beach, I would say that you definitely want to be on standby. If you're at the beach, you have property there, I would do my best to get out of Dodge.
All right, and with the new models that have come out, it shows the storm going right over Columbia, South Carolina. What to expect there? When will it start? People are kind of curious on that area because it looks like it still could be a hurricane status in Columbia.
It's going to be the same thing. Columbia is not really too far off from Charlotte, so it's going to still be a heavy rain event, potential for those strong damaging winds. We may see some of those gusts a little bit on the higher side, maybe 40, 50 mile per hour gusts. So same deal. We could see the trees come down, power outages, and again, maybe some flooding as well.
All right, and do you know around what time that would start for Columbia?
Columbia, I would say it's going to be in the Sunday range as well. So starting to get those outer rain bands, maybe more Sunday afternoon and maybe Sunday early evening, and then continuing through the day on Monday, clearing out gradually Tuesday.
All right, and then west of Charlotte in the Shelby area, are they still expecting rain and wind? Is that about the same thing?
Yep.
All right.
Everyone in the Piedmont, we're all kind of all in it together.
All right, and Kayla's wanting to know if we can show the rain graphic again on how much rain we're expected to get.
Sure. And again, take it for a grain of salt. This is really far out. So this is a little too much. I would say 3 to 5 is a good estimate for how much rain we could see from this system, but this is our furthest model that we go out. So in the coming days, it'll get fine-tuned. But this is just to give you an idea right now.
What about the Outer Banks area of North Carolina?
That's going to be the same deal. You're kind of on the edge, but it would be something that you should prepare for.
And can you talk a little bit more about the tornado threat with Charlotte area?
Sure. So what you see with tropical storms with tornadoes is they're usually quick spin-ups. All that means is that they're rain-wrapped. They form within some of these outer bands, EF1. Damage is minimal, but you still want to make sure that you're prepared. You want to make sure you have your weather radios. You're tuned in for the latest alerts through social media. Of course, we'll be here alerting you. Make sure that you have an ability to get those warnings to your phone, but they're usually very quick and they're small. They're on the smaller scale.
Do you think up to 10 inches of rain is out of the question?
I would say that's a little on the high side. But again, got to keep an eye on things. It's still far out. Once we get to 3 days, that's usually when we have a really good idea of what will happen.
Okay, and what about the counties east of Charlotte, Albemarle, Stanley, those areas over there? What are they expecting?
Well, you're still within that cone of uncertainty, so we could see the system still swing. And again, still the potential to see some of that heavy rain, wind. It's really the same. I know I sound like a broken record, but that's really going to be the biggest impacts that we'll see.
Perfect. And what are some supplies that should be in your personal hurricane kit?
All right, well, you want to make sure, of course, first and foremost, that you have a gallon of water per person for a minimum of 3 days. You want to make sure you have non-perishable food items for 3 days. A first aid kit is very good thing to have. Flashlight in case the power goes out with some extra batteries. Weather radio, very important too, so you can get some alerts. Those are the big items that you want to make sure you have. Make sure you have your food for your dog. And also make sure that you have blankets and baby formula if you do have an infant in the house. And something that we actually talked about, which I didn't know, we did a little viewer response. What do people wish that they had on hand with Hurricane Hugo a few years back when we saw that major impact? And people said that they really wish that they had a chainsaw. So keep that in mind. Always make sure your car is gassed up, ready to go as well. So make sure you have all of those items. And we'll have that full list actually on WCCB-Charlotte.com, so you can check it out on there.
And is there any need for evacuations in this area? Shelby, Gastonia, Charlotte, If people have medical issues, is there any reason that they would need to evacuate?
At this time, it doesn't seem likely. This is going to be more for the coastal areas. Big thing again is that storm surge and that damaging wind. By the time it gets here, it's going to be like a really intense thunderstorm. And we're going to keep getting those pulses from those rain bands that keep coming in. So as of right now, I would say I'll leave it up to you. That's something that you would need to discuss and keep an eye on warnings. I don't want to tell people no, but as of right now, it seems like the need is much greater along the coast.
Now, will this storm break up before it gets to the North Carolina mountains, or are they going to see impacts from this as well?
It'll definitely get torn apart even more, but you will still see some of those impacts. You're definitely going to get some rain and you're going to get some wind.
All right. Will this be as big of an impact as Hugo was for us? Do we know at this point?
We don't know. It's definitely hard to tell at this point.
All right. Do you have any questions? Yep, we just did that. All right, I think we're good to go. All right. Well, if you guys have more questions, let them know. Ask us. Nicole can answer.
Got you guys.
All right. Thank you.